there's just the solid drop, and then you get into what is originally called the Grand Prairie. There's actually a city called Grand Prairie after that. Okay. And it's just a massive valley. Well, again, if you follow the creek where I had my encounter, there's several other connecting creeks. Essentially just leads you right out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be an easy place for these things to migrate to, lay eggs like a sea turtle. Then they leave, they go back out, and these things would, again, migrate west. They would simply go out to larger areas as they get larger, and would be able to catch larger updrafts and travel much further, much farther. And again, because we think of them as dinosaurs, but they're not. They're reptiles. They don't have the same need from a caloric perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they don't necessarily have to be out and about the same way birds do. So you have a very small population. Their caloric intake would be very reduced. And if they're mostly nocturnal, these things would essentially be invisible, because even if you do see them, everyone says the same thing.
Yeah.
I thought I was looking at a stork. I thought I was looking at a heron. I thought I was looking at a pelican, because they do that S-curve thing with their neck, right?
Yeah.
They all look like something very common, but there has to be something that says, take a closer look at this thing, and then you recognize it for what it is. So it's easy for them
like
to
the
be.
double take, isn't it?
Exactly. And most of us, right, I call it the green wall in Metroplex Monsters, where it's like we essentially live on these little concrete islands, and we drive on these little concrete bridges that we call roads.
Mm-hmm.
And what do? We cut the grass all the way, for a few yards, and then there's this nice solid line where the trees are. And of course, what do?
Yeah.
We slope it so the rain washes off. Well, that's where you have all these tall brushes and all these little trees popping up. You can't see more than 2 feet into that.
No, that's right.
And so what you have, in fact, this is one of those things that you tell people have no idea what's going on. In Irving, the city of Irving, this is just Irving, not Dallas, but essentially Irving is it's the city west to Dallas, and it is essentially just a continuation of the concrete sprawl that is downtown Dallas. Okay. They have anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 feral hogs in the city of Irving. No one ever sees them, but they cause thousands upon thousands of dollars of damage every year.
Yeah. Because
of this thing that I call the green wall. Well, the thing is, the green wall literally flanks all of these creeks and little crevices that snake their way around North Texas, because that's where the water is. So that's where you have trees. That's where you have the shrubs. So essentially, most of us are living our lives completely unaware. Like, you could march whole armies through these creeks. No one would ever see them, ever.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of this stuff, again, Texas has the Lake Worth monster, not too far. Again, that's in Fort Worth. This happened late in the 60s. These things seem to happen around the creeks, and again, all these things easily follow them. Why? Because it's easier for them to avoid us.
Yeah.
If you don't want to get seen, go where the humans aren't. Go where it's easier to navigate. You've got water, you've got food. Why would they ever come out to be like, hi?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's like over in the UK, in London, they do say that, you're never, I think it's about 2 or 3 meters away from a rat, but you would never see them. They're in the gutters and under the ground, and so it's the same sort of thing, I should imagine. It's hidden in plain sight, isn't it?
Oh, exactly. And again, going back to the pterosaurs, very, very small population, right? Yeah. Mostly nocturnal. That seems to be the going thought, is they seem to be mostly nocturnal. And again, there are known creatures that we study all the time that experts will go out, they won't find them.
Yeah.
Right. For seasons at a time, like the Wolverine. I was watching one of those specials on it, and they were saying, hey, this guy, he's a professional. This is what he does. He studies these creature, known habitat, known food source, everything. And he can't find one for an entire season because these creatures survive by staying away from us. And we think, well, what about bears and all this? Yeah, but think about how many black bears there are in North America, just the continental United States. And we don't even include the numbers from Texas.
Yeah.
But just the continental United States, almost 600,000 black bears.
Yeah.
That's a lot of bears. And
That
it's
is.
not like we're seeing all of them.
No,
3 million,
exactly.
3 million feral hogs in the state of Texas. 3 million. Some of these things are hundreds of pounds, 500-600 pounds.
Yeah.
We don't see them that often. We see the damage they do, but we don't really see them all that often. So you take a very small population, give them just a few things, we wouldn't notice them.
No, exactly. I mean, the US is so vast as well.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to get lost and disappear, then they could quite easily do that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And this is one of those things that people don't get. Again, we're like, but there's people everywhere. Not really. Not really. Just, and just a great example of how easy it is to disappear. The Atlanta City bomber, right? Back in the 90s, we had this guy who detonated a bomb at the Atlanta Olympics. And we knew who he was. He hid in a state park. He disappeared into the state park. We knew where he was. It is a 10-mile by 10-mile state park. Not that big. The dude eventually gave up like 15, 20 years later. He had to turn himself in. No one could find him.
Yeah.
They knew what he looked like. They knew who he was. They knew where he was. That's how easy it is to disappear in forest, right? You just have to get a few feet off the trail and you're gone.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen the documentary, The Missing 411 by David Pauladis.
Yes.
And, it was particularly about the hunters that disappeared when they were basically like saying, "Oh, we went off and done our thing. We left like my dad or whatever on the tree over there. He was just sitting there, and then when we come back, his gun was there and he'd gone. Never found him again, and just things like that. And when that came up, actually, we done a show on it on another channel, and we got a guy from the US that was a hunter, and he said, these places are so vast, massively vast, that if you want to disappear, you could, that no one would ever find you, especially if you're a hunter, because you know what you're doing in survival skills and stuff like that. But I should imagine, especially with the Bigfoot sightings and stuff, it is just literally a sighting. It's a very glimpse of something in the woods, and then it disappears.
Right. Essentially, we're seeing them when they cross into our world. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. I am intrigued with the Bigfoot stuff. I would love to go Bigfoot hunting.
It's a lot of fun if you like camping. It's basically just camping with ambition is all it is.
Absolutely. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, exactly. And again, you have the right spots. So the thing with Bigfoot, and this actually does, to tie back to my sighting, there's a lot of weird stuff that I don't think can be chalked up to purely, natural things, right? Again, in my book, I've got a story about a lechuza that was seen in Dallas. And essentially, for those of you who've never heard of the lechuza, it's the Spanish name for it. Essentially, it's a harpy. It is it's a person-sized owl with a woman's face. This is clearly a paranormal creature, right? And the stuff around it, this is clearly paranormal, but it's also physical. Like this thing it took physical form. It was bending trees while it was moving between them, terrorizing this poor girl. And again, I've got several. It was weird. I got 3 different accounts of a gargoyle, not necessarily in the same area, but that was the words they used. Gargoyle. 3 different cases within like a month. And they're like, look, I know this sounds crazy, but I saw a gargoyle. And they describe a gargoyle. Like, I don't know what to do with that. I'm like, I don't know what to do with it either. I mean, because it's, the living dinosaur stuff in, some of these others, like the giant beaver. My favorite is actually the Cadborosaurus. It's an aquatic thing. like I know what to do with it because it fits with it. Well, it fits very easily within a biblical worldview, which is my thing. That's what I'm here for. However, for these other things, you really just you try to say, look, it's paranormal. It's on that side of this veil. We can't directly observe them. Like you're never going to catch a lechusa in a net, right? Are they people who transform?
If you do, it's going to be very unlucky.
Exactly. So I don't think you want that to happen. But, you got questions like, are these paranormal entities that take physical form? Are they humans that are somehow transforming? You have to throw all that in the mix. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, if one shows up, I'll take a shot at it. We'll see what happens.
That's it,
But, beyond that, it's like, look, all we can say is it's paranormal. It is metaphysical. It is supernatural. It is spiritual, and it's on that side, which means, I'm kind of out. I can't poke something with a scientific stick if it's paranormal.
No, that's right. I mean, in the US, I mean, you've got a lot of Indian, the Red Indians and that they're sort of spiritual creatures. They talk about the Bigfoot, but they call it the Ridge Walker. You got ones that shapeshift and it could. So these are other creatures that are being discovered or being sighted. It could be the same thing, but we're not going to know. We're not going to know at all until one of them is caught and witnessed to shapeshift, and then you can go, that's what it is.
No, precisely, and this goes back to the entire question, right? Once you start getting into the paranormal, there's an assumption that people that you saw this thing, that you're seeing it for what it is, and I think that's a bad assumption to make. I think it's very, very clear that they aren't what they're presenting themselves as, and if you look at, for me, everything's pie, right? Pie charts, preferably pumpkin, but the close cousin to the pie chart is the Venn diagram, right? You get the two circles. Lots of things have overlap, and that doesn't bother me. I have problems when I see a Venn diagram that's basically the same.
Yeah.
Right. And the parts that don't line up is how they look. You're seeing the same phenomena, same events, same everything. And it's like, okay, is it more likely that we're seeing a thing that is simply taking different forms and it's all the same phenomena? And for some people, they don't like that question, right? Again, I do think there's a physical Bigfoot. I think there is a physical Bigfoot out there. I mean, as a species, I think there's reason to believe that, or at least not even believe, but to work from that hypothesis.
Yeah.
But I think a much larger percentage of what people are actually observing are probably paranormal. You wake up in your bed and you look up and there's this dark humanoid figure with red glowing eyes. It's a demon, or it's a shadow person, or it's whatever.
Yeah.
You do that in the forest, it's immediately a Bigfoot.
Absolutely. It's the setting, isn't it? And you're more primed to believe that if you're going Bigfoot hunting and you see something like that, you're going to assume that it's a Bigfoot.
And there's a lot of overlap between what people claim to see when they see Bigfoot. There's a lot of associated paranormal activity that doesn't make sense. There's a couple stories. I won't say where I got them. I'm trying to verify them right now, but essentially that, things like piles of rocks being left in the living room of people going Bigfoot hunting. It's not uncommon for Bigfoot hunters to say, look, these things followed me home. I'm sorry. You traveled 80 miles from where you were to where you are now, and they followed you?
Yeah.
Doesn't that tell you that maybe something else is going on? It would be, so I do a show on Tuesday on Untold Radio AM. And my co-host there, he's just like, look, it's all paranormal, right? Yeah. Just all of it. And that's a very tempting, hey, I'd like to be able to say, look, it's all paranormal. Boom, I'm done. I'm going to go draw Spider-Man or whatever, right? I got other things to do. I think that's a very tempting proposition, but there's associated phenomena with Bigfoot, with these pterosaurs that don't indicate a paranormal, at least in some of these cases, they don't indicate a paranormal origination. I think it's again the worldview I have, and that's what I advocate